Hey, I hope you are fantastic. I hope you had a great lesson yesterday to understand more about cinematographic lighting and how you can apply this into 3D. Today we're going to make something really special because it's going to be two parts lesson, one for the beginners and one for more expert users. For beginners, we're going to understand the Redshift interface and how to create a project from start to finish, from creating the scene to render that scene. And we're going to see the ACES color space and what is that and why is this standard in the industry. So it will be super fun. And for advanced user, are going to send you a scene that a scene that is already made and a reference. So you need to match that scene with the reference. So it's a challenge, and hopefully you can publish those on Discord. So I'm super happy, super excited that the things you're going to create. And let's start this day too. Let's do it. So we're talking about the interface of Redshift. So basically the first thing that we need to do is to go to render settings, and we're going to set up this to Redshift. It's going to be in a standard, and you're not going to allow to see like anything on Redshift until you put Redshift here. Okay, after we set up this Redshift render engine, you need to go to preferences, and to see in the rendered Redshift, if it's the GPU, it's on. So in this case I have the 4070 and it's on, and the CPU, like I don't want the CPU to do nothing. So you choose the RTX or your graphic card, and you click this button to allow Redshift to use that. Then you will have, of course, this tab that says Redshift, and you have both options, basic and advanced. Basic is probably, to start, is a good point because you have the noising. You know what the noising is, right? You have motion blur, that basically when you see movement on the objects and you see these trail movements. And you have, the render engine production, or RT. RT is basically a more simple way that you can put just passes on it. And production has a little more options, and you have, of course, like low, medium, high, very high, custom, right? So this is the threshold variation, right? It's like 0.1 low, 0.01 high, and then this number, the less the quality is better. The noising, you have these four options, sorry, and the optics is the best one, so that's it. And for motion blur, is the 2 steps is enough. So like that's it. You have global illumination here, that you can enable or disable. Just leave this on. And you have the parameters of reflection, volume in terms of light, volume, lighting. And when you are in the advanced mode, it's a little, it's not the basic stuff. We have a lot more options. You will have from a really noisy picture to start to going less and less noisy. And for the bucket, basically you have this the point cloud, and then you start to see some buckets, some squares rendering on the image. Okay, so basically, I always use progressive. I think it's better because you have the best perspective of that, and you can move it, and it will be faster if you choose another angle, or so yeah. Okay, so after that you have the progressive passes. So if I decrease this for 300, for example, I just have these progressive passes. It's pretty quick, so that works really well. If you want to move the object, basically, don't touch this stuff. It's not necessary. This is threshold. So the threshold that I want is this 001. That is super fast and is good quality. because if I go to denoising, I can see the denoising on the preview. Do you see how fast it is? It's like if I start again, like it's not starting as noisy as we have before. It's like boom, like right away you have a better option. Even if I put 0.1, you will see a denoising version of the render, and that's fantastic because it can decrease the render time, but it gets good quality. So this is really good to have it on. Okay, this is the size of the bucket and how progressive is the bucket if we're using the bucket type that I don't recommend. For the final rendering, yes, I recommend the bucket because you just put the render and you forget about it. You leave it there. Okay, motion blur, self-explanatory. That's basically when you have animation on the object. We're going to dive into this more into the render settings part. Okay, so we go to global. Basically you have, you know, the hair. If you have hair, you have, you know, the type of the amount of reflection, the volume, transparency, everything that you have before, but now you have a more detailed version. This is pretty important. You have the ACES here. So ACES is a color standard for in the industry right now. It's really amazing. Like it has more information in the lows and in the highs. So when you color correct, it will be super good. And you just need to leave this on. I mean, this is for on default this way. The only thing that you need to understand is that the textures, these textures, for example, and this is the shader graph. We're going to dive into this better later on, but the textures need to be on sRGB. If the textures are in raw, you will see now they're washed out. It's not recreating the real image. It's almost like a washed out version of that because all the ACES works in that way, but we're not going to dive in. Redshift native is using ACES, so the only thing that you need to worry is to have the images on sRGB, and that's it. That's how you can use ACES, because Redshift automatically will transform the ACES into the sRGB later on. Okay, so remember, the only thing you need to do is like the color space of the images need to be in file IO sRGB, not anything else. Okay, that's the only thing you need to worry. Solid. Okay, after that we're going to, so this is ACES. Of course, if you have reflection, subsurface emission, you can override everything that's in here. We're going to do that later. So global illumination is enabled or not enabled. You see the difference? It's like it's not enabled, ugly. It is enabled, beautiful. Basically what means like the light is going to bounce all around the scene or not. It's like it's just the light from the lights, or is the light from the entire scene. That's because it's global, right? Global illumination. Are you looking at a place when you can learn how to attract high-paying clients? When you can connect with awesome creatives from all over the world, like 3D creatives just like you? Don't look further, because we have the community perfect for you. We have the 3D Academy, you know, when you can find these awesome testimonials that people that is being successful. You have also, you know, Classroom, when you can find really great lessons for you can position yourself online, how to negotiate, how to, you know, what message to write to connect with people on LinkedIn, everything that you need for free. Yes, for free. This is crazy. This community is a new community only for 3D creatives and motion designers that want to increase, you know, and create a profitable business with their skills. So don't wait no more and join this wonderful community. The links are everywhere, so search for them and join us. Now back to the video. Okay, you have here the irradiance point cloud. if you go to 8, we're going to have a less point cloud, and I will remove the denoising for us can see that. Sorry. So if it's 16, it will be more, of course. 32, of course, it will be more. 4 will be less. Basically the same. Just leave it in 16 and that's it. Don't worry about that. The caustics is enabled or not enabled. Basically, caustics, you know what I mean? It's like when you put light through a glass, you will see the light. For example, if the light is blue, you probably will see the light blue. So that's when on and off this caustic. The AOV is basically the passes of the renders, like reflections, shadows, ambient occlusion, and all of that. And this is the manager when you choose, you know, caustics, emission, global illumination, and you know, and you can, after you finish your scene, you will export these passes to create the composition of all of them. And you have, you know, the denoise option too. That's pretty like I recommend for you to do that. And we're going to cover this in the render setting, but basically this is the AOV section. The optimization, you can touch this, but I don't recommend, just leave it that way. Okay. And the system, the only thing important in the system is the memory, because in here you can try to put what percentage of the GPU you want to use, and that way you're not going to burn out your GPU. That will not happen, but metaphorically, right? And that's it. I mean, that's what you need to know about the render settings. How you can have this, basically when you create, you know, a light and its redshift is selected, you create a light and it's a redshift light. If you create a camera, it will be a redshift camera. And when you have an object and you want to have more options for the object, you create this tag that is the render shift tag. So when you go to here, render tags, you have the RS object. And what it is, basically, it shows you all the possibilities. The motion, you need to activate the motion blur, right? The transformation, for example, or global settings. You have the object ID, that's for render purposes. You have the matte, you know, it's like, I will explain this more in the render setting, but basically you have the control here. And the tessellation is the way that you can subdivide the shapes, the elements. You know, subdivision as this, right? When you subdivision surface, when you have more polygons or less polygons, right? You have this mesh, and then you go and you have a denser mesh. So that's what these modifiers do. The tessellation is basically the same thing as but just in the render, not in the preview. Okay. You have also a displacement here, and you can activate the displacement on the object. I recommend that. We're going to talk about that later too. And you have the visibility, and how visible is the object. If it casts shadows, if you know you don't have any shadow here because I removed the shadows on the object, so it's look pretty weird. You will realize the importance of shadows. Okay, so for example, you know, there's no shadow. The object is not giving me any shadow. The self shadows, the shadows that are inside the object, are on and off, right? So this is self shadow. And basically the ambient occlusion and all of that, you can overwrite everything from this thing, or just leave it off and just use what the scene is providing you. Okay, in the exclusion tag, that basically this works not so much in the object, it's work better in the lights. So for example, if I want to, on this light, top light, I want to exclude the shoe. Like, I will not see the top light in the shoe. So right now, the top light is removing the shoe to affect. I mean, the top light is not affecting the shoe because I remove it. right? If I put it here, like it's not doing the same. Like it's working on the lights because the light is overriding this, right? Okay, so you can understand. Okay, basically here you create, you know, the materials, like the Redshift materials, all the materials here, all the lights up here, and the utilities, right? Same as the other version. And you have this like window that's the most important thing in Redshift. That's basically how you preview all of this, and this is pretty important, so we're going to expand a little bit. So basically we're going to talk about this more in the render settings lesson, but basically what it means, like this is the final render. If you render the final image, you press this button. If you want to just preview the scene, you play this. If you want to reset everything because you do changes, you do this. Basically, I mean, you have the beauty, the caustics, the emission. We don't have caustic and emission. We have global illumination. This is how global illumination is in the scene, but you know, just leave it on beauty. And this is the most important thing for me on the workflow. And basically what it means is, like, if I have this auto version here, if I have the auto option, whatever window that I'm in, it will render this, right? So if I go to any vision and any preview that I have in the viewport here, it will be rendered. But if I choose render, I can go to the perspective and nothing happened, because I'm setting up the window to only see in the rendering this camera view. And even I can choose the camera, for example, render cam 1. I can just choose render cam 1. And if I change the camera, it will not affect the preview in the rendering. But if I choose render, it will like see every camera that I'm using, but not the perspective. And that's pretty awesome, because you can have this, and I can, you know, be in here and say, okay, I don't like the shoes. You see it's an error. So if I can put just the shoe here, and then so I'm moving this in the preview, meanwhile I'm seeing the rendering. So it's pretty useful, right? Let's see. Okay, you see what I mean? So if I have this in auto, like, it will not do that. It will see every angle that I'm seeing right now. And this is pretty cool to give some shots, like to give some angles, right? So you have this is basic like settings on for the Redshift. You can find more in the next lessons. We're going to dive in into render settings and everything, but that's basically the interface that Redshift has. Hey, this lesson is a general workflow, how to do a scene from scratch to end. So whatever people that have more experience on Cinema 4D and 3D, please skip this lesson. This is for beginners. So we're starting right now to, I will add probably, and I will, spoiler alert, I will load something that I will share with you later, but I would just put this on the project. So imagine if we don't have anything, right? Just imagine. So we don't have anything, right? So we have this project right now. We need to be sure that this is in Redshift, okay? And we are going to add two things and then render out the scene, okay? So we add the elements, right? This is the shapes of the elements. And we want to create, we're going to remove all the materials. We don't need anything. So first, because this is in Redshift, right? Let's create a light, a dome light. Okay. Basically a dome light is a general light. And let's add a HDRI that I have my friends Polyhaven. I will put information over here, that way we can see what they do. So this is Polyhaven. Please support this project. It's pretty good for the community of 3D because it have wonderful textures, models, and HDRIs. Wonderful, and they're all for free, so it's pretty amazing. Okay, it's added right now. So let's start, as we explained before, the RS render view that you can find in Window, RS render view. Okay, you're going to have this layout later, so don't worry about that. Okay, so we add a light, right? Now we need to add a camera. So create camera, standard camera. We see through the camera, right? Now that we have a dome light, we can rotate that light to have a better perspective of the model. We can change the focal length to 50 millimeters. That's a little more resembled to portraits. And now we can add a different light that is a target light. Sorry, an area light. And we can add a target object, and that object can be our character, because we have on the RS camera, we go into the preview and nothing happened. So I will grab this light and I will change the how do we see the scene. This is, you change how you see the scene. This is how the real light is going. This is how real light with lines. This is a quick shading, and this is a quick shading with the lines. You see the mesh is pretty dense, so that's why it's black. You can see the constant shading, that this is awful. And quick shading is fine. Okay, so we're just going to light this guy in a good position, right? Can add it here. Okay, a little secret: if you go to the texture, a little softbox. Oh, it's a little change, right? We're going to dive this in a little later. Okay, so if we have a big light, it will have soft shadows. If you have a small light but really powerful, you will have hard shadows. You see, basically the sun do the same thing. The sun is pretty far away, but it's pretty strong, so that's why it's hard shadow. Okay, but we are going to dive into that later. Okay, but this, imagine if we are in a studio and we want to create this light. Okay, so the soft shadows, pretty amazing. Now we want to create a material, so let's do a Redshift material standard. Let's copy that one. We can add this one on the subject. We can open the shader graph window, and as you see, this is a material that is gray, and weight 1 is super reflective. Weight 0 is no reflective. Weight 1 super reflective. Roughness is this reflection that is not hard. So that reflection is pretty hard. That reflection is not that hard. You see, less hard. For example, clothing is like it reflects. It has reflection, but it's light. Okay, so roughness 0.3, for example. Okay, and we have the character. We want to change it maybe in a bluish, more, you know, Toby Winnie. I don't know how to pronounce that one. Okay, let's put Toby. Toby Winnie. You see that color? Is that the same? No, it's not the same. I have a trick that is pretty amazing. Let me see. If I, for example, have this, and I put the, this color picker. Actually, you can go and pick whatever color you want outside Cinema 4D. That's wonderful, right? That's wonderful. Thanks, Toby. Oh no, I don't want to go there. Or let's go and listen. Why not?
On my soul, everybody in the click strap, and they all on gold. Keep a stick just like Branch Poppy, but I ain't a troll. On my mama, can't nobody out here play me for no hoe. Guard your grill. Ain't nobody out here hard to kill. The gat I pack a black and peel your cat from front to back.
Okay. So let's. I think the color needs to be a little more saturated. Okay, let's imagine that one. It's looking pretty good for a fashion show, right? It's looking pretty good. Okay, and now we are going to. Okay, so we add the light, right? So if we remove that, we're going to see what you're seeing. Okay, we have both lights, and we need to render this scene. So to render this scene, you go to, or you want to put an image? Oh, let's put an image. So if we want to render this scene, we have two options. We can press this button and we'll render here, right? So we choose our, imagine if we don't have any of this. We don't have anything. So imagine we have this as a rendered setup, and we go to Redshift. Okay, and in Redshift we go to medium, that's fine, and we want to render this here. So it will render on this view, but no one does that. And after it's rendering on this view, you can see it's rendering the entire scene. Okay, so after it's rendering here, you can file and save the image, whatever you want to save. Like I said, nobody do that. So what people do, normal and regular people do, sane people do, we go and choose the path that we want to save in the format that we want to save it. In this case, TIFF. We choose the folder renders, course renders. This one is general workflow. Okay, 01. We choose the path, and we are going to press this button. So it's render to picture viewer, or Shift R. I don't know Mac, but if you go to render to picture view, it's going to render into the picture view. So this is more convenient because you cannot render here, but you can do things like more freely, right? And after it's finishing, okay, you will have the scene. See that first go to ACES and then go to sRGB. So that's the process that I explained before. And now you will have the render on the folder that we choose. And basically that's the general workflow of what we're doing here. So if we go to renders, and here you will find the image here, and that's it. See, beautiful. This is the general workflow. See you in the next lesson.
What I done wrong, I done right. It's my darkness and your sunshine.